Hello, Ender Sword here again, this time with an absolutely ridiculous PvP. I haven't watched it, but I've heard good things, and I can just see by the length of the game that this is going to be quite interesting. So this was given to me by exioN's Eclipze, which is our Protoss player down here on the left-hand side of the map. And I don't know what they're doing. I guess this is a bit of a practice match. I don't know whether it was kind of a friendly clan war or whatever. I know that ROH, which is Renegades of Hell, with MaydorK up here, the Protoss player on the top right-hand side of the map. And we are on Daybreak, of course. I always go right to the rocks whenever I say Daybreak, because that's what I think of. But they are both in a team league called URTL, Underrated Team League, from Underrated Gaming. It's an awesome team league. If you haven't checked them out yet, it's on pretty much every day. I think literally every day it is actually on. I've casted a few of the matches myself. There are dozens of casters doing many matches a day, like dozens of matches a day pretty much. There are 44 teams in the league. They're divided into groups and standings are kept. Check them out at urgaming.net, and you'll see that on stream on Team Liquid pretty much every day for URTL. So definitely check them out. There's a lot of teams, some that you've heard of, some that you will not have heard of so far, but a lot of players, a lot of good talent out there in these teams, and it's pretty much a worldwide thing, I think, as well, as we do get a lot of players from other countries in it, which is really quite interesting. So in terms of the builds here, we can see pretty much even on workers there so far, and been relatively mirrored builds to this point, except for the fact that actually they're not mirrored builds at all. I'm just a liar. There is no gas being taken by Eclipze down there on the bottom of the map, and instead we've got the 2 workers per gas up for RH's MaydorK there. He is going for the Zealot, whereas Eclipze is opting not to do that, perhaps waiting to get a Stalker out instead once the cybernetics core is finished, and going on the simulator here as well. Extra probe on it, see if he realizes, yeah, and pulls one off there. Yeah, getting a stalker out and chrono boosting it out as he starts warp gate technology there as well. No real revelation of what the tech is going to be yet for either player, but we've got MaydorK going for a sentry here instead of a stalker as his second unit, with a nice little zealot just kind of patrolling around the normal cheesy proxy pylon type silly areas, making sure that everything is in fact clean, and now chrono boosting out a mothership core to go along with this. We've got a gateway, or what I thought was 2 gateways, but actually a gateway and a Twilight console going on for Eclipze here, but the expansion going down for a MaydorK here instead. And I hope that's the way you're supposed to pronounce his name, MaydorK. MaydorK, whatever, who cares. And robotics facility coming out of him here with just these units, again, trying to really block any sort of early aggression if there's going to be an early gateway push or anything like that. People in the observer chat obviously speculating, you know, what is he going, what's he going to open with, and Dark Shrine is in fact the thing that is going down for Eclipze. A lot of people have moved away from the robo opening, which has made the DTs a little bit better, just in the fact that you're not really forced to open with the robo anymore, so you may not have the observer out in time to actually stop it. And of course the Dark Shrine itself is cheaper on gas at this point, so it's a little more affordable to get, but he is going to be able to, I guess there must have been a pause there, he is going to be able to get an observer out in time to stop any sort of crazy DT-ness that will be coming out of exion's Eclipze. So we'll see how much he does invest into that and what he's able to roll off into. Both players are are going for an expansion, but MaydorK's is actually finished and out there already, whereas Eclipse has really just started, and it's going to be a while before he can actually mine in with that. MaydorK not only has the Observer in place, but has actually gone for the hallucinated Phoenix Scout, which was able to see absolutely everything that was going on in his base. And Eclipse sending that across as well. The similar thing, can see that there is in fact a robo in place, and probably was able to see the blur of that Observer there as well, and has basically just opted not to continue with the actual Dark Templar themselves. So he's got the shrine down, but didn't actually warp in any of the DTs, as he saw that that was likely going to be shut down. Going into Robotech here himself and adding on a lot of gateways, going up to 6 there as his second base does get established. And yeah, as Cheeto does point out, Eclipse is in fact quite behind on this from a few aspects. He is behind a little bit in the worker count itself. He actually is going to get a Dark Templar out, maybe just to try and control map space. TSO disputing that, saying he's only a little bit behind. I think he is a little more behind than he would certainly want to be. Yeah, tech-wise is where he's certainly in the back, and that you can see as he's going for the robo. That's really where he is lacking at this point. But one thing that's worked out in his favor, he hasn't had to spend a lot of his money on units, despite the fact that he couldn't get in and get anything done. He's also really cheaped out on actually defending himself, which is interesting. The DT there just trying to control the tower, but the Observer now in place. The DT is going to have to actually run off here, and will run off into the darkness, and just kind of be an annoying little guy. He's got the technology, so figured he might as well get one, but he will be going into the robotics bay here instead, not mining off either gas from his natural thus far, whereas we do have those both mining for MaydorK over on the top of the map. He's already got the thermal lance actually started. He's got his first or second Colossus, sorry, in production. His first one already out on the map, so again a fair bit ahead there, with actually Immortals still coming out on the way. And where do you have that rallied to? Oh, has that rallied right to where this warp prism is, so I don't know whether it's his intention that that walk across the map and actually go over there, or whether that is just a bit of a miss rally. We'll be adding on, yeah, miss rally does pull that back before it gets too far. I've certainly done that before, where you intended to send an Observer or warp prism across, you go to make your next Immortal or Colossus and find, oh, it just walked across the entire map and was killed before I actually noticed that it was even doing anything. But definitely a much superior army here right now for our I always want to say like for our Protoss player, but that's both of them. But for MaydorK up here on the top right-hand side, a little bit of a drop in the back, but there's already cannons in place, instantly throwing down that photon overcharge, able to pick up one Zealot, and then we'll get out. So that didn't do anything other than drain a little bit of energy from our mothership core, due to those things already pretty much being in place to control that. We've got the third base almost established for MaydorK, with the third base just now going down for Eclipse. Instantly MaydorK is able to see that, like on the exact moment that it was going down, so he's now aware that it is there. Also going to get another good look at everything that's going on, and conspicuously note the absence of the army, which is just in front of the base here. Archon, certainly an interesting choice. He's obviously got that technology already in place due to having the Dark Shrine and Twilight Council out early, but is going to be behind in the Colossus counts. Interesting to see that neither player has been into actual Stargates. The only Phoenixes on the map are fake. So not a lot to actually hard counter the Colossus in terms of Void Rays or anything that we've been seeing a lot lately in PvP. But with 4 Colossus out on the map, this will be interesting. But there's not a lot of fodder underneath them. There's not that heavy number of gateway units that you very frequently see in front of these, particularly high numbers of zealots. Instead, just double pumping out the Colossus themselves is certainly going to be interesting. He's going for level 1 on armor as opposed to going directly to level 2 on the weapons. Whereas, where is the forge? We got Eclipse doing that instead. It's going to make the splash damage on the Archons better, obviously make everything better, but the Colossus and Archons in particular with splash are going to benefit maybe a little more from the upgraded attack as opposed to getting the armor there. Which is just kind of interesting to me that he would do that. You usually see a lot of Protoss go all the way to +3 before even worrying about that. So I don't know what his thinking actually is behind there. The scouting Phoenix was able to actually see this Dark Shrine going down as well. So hopefully he'll have a few things out and in place and ready for that type of thing. The Zealots warping into this hidden pylon on the bottom of the map, and we'll try and make a run for this mineral line, but there are 2 photon cannons already in place here. Really good SimCity wall-off structure, and I don't really think they're going to get a lot done other than take that cannon down. He's not going to get any actual worker kills out of this, and those will be taken out. I don't know how Eclipse is planning to really crawl back into this. He keeps making some attempts at harassment to slow down MaydorK, but as he goes on to his 4th base, we can see that there's just no real amount of harassment that's been able to claw him back at this point. There's only 6 kills done on workers for Eclipse, and as this army moves out, that's just so much splash damage on the Colossus. I don't know what he's going to be able to really do about it unless he can get right underneath the Colossus with these Archons and really rain down a lot. He does have a decent number himself, but it's just not quite. Usually just 1 or 2 more starts to make a huge amount of difference, and we're still just getting them continually coming out by MaydorK. But I think there is an opportunity that he may be missing here. I think that he needed to maybe force an engagement a little earlier on. Do get aggression now coming in the main in the form of DTs, which he really should have known were kind of out and on the way, but doesn't actually have any detection here. If he's able to pick off this robotics facility, it's going to set him back a lot in terms of production of Colossus, and that does go down. And if he gets his robotics bay in addition to everything, that is crazy. Nobody expects a DT after they DT, but he saw it. He at least had a Phoenix over it, may not have actually clicked the building to realize that this was actually happening, and massive damage going on here for our for MaydorK against the army of Eclipse, and really the production of Eclipse, even going after this last remaining robotics facility, sending more DTs into the 3rd base, able to take out the cannon and detection there. If he's able to pull this off and kind of get rid of all detection on the map, then there's not going to be anything to do, but Eclipse does have an observer with the army, which is going to pull in and kill these guys off, but massive damage still going on at the 3rd base as the DTs don't even get caught, and 2 of them will just kind of withdraw into the night, possibly to swing out and do some more damage later. It's just a huge nuisance for that to happen, but it's starting to question, what do we do? Does he go Stargate from here? Hasn't even powered up these structures again yet. Instead going to rebuild both the Dark Shrine and the Templar Archives. I don't know what the thinking behind that is, particularly for both of them. I could see saying, I'm definitely Archons from here, so I'm going to throw down the Templar, but to get that and the Dark Shrine back is certainly interesting, particularly since he's got detection all over the damn place. So definitely interesting to see him going into that as a response to what MaydorK is doing. I feel that MaydorK's just in a massive position at this moment and has his army maxed out, and now with the +2 attack and going on to +3, but and we don't even have +3 being started, so for Eclipse, so kind of giving away the early weapons advantage he has, and obviously without that +1 armor that we talked about earlier. Another attack coming here at the third base, targeting down the Nexus there directly. That was kind of a long shot, but does get some worker kills on the Zealots there anyway. But yeah, this is just harassment all over the place. Hard to even keep track of it all. Even looking at just the mini-map, going again right for the Nexus, we'll be able to pick this off, cut off these gases, which is a large force in what the Protoss is doing. If he's able to get this technology before the storm finishes, that's huge, but I think this will easily be cleaned up in time. But he's able to see that a chrono boost is going on, that he was in fact researching Storm there, did allow his Warp Prism to die, probably didn't have to do that, but Storm does actually complete, and just continued harassment all over the map here. Huge number of cannons going down off one of the biggest Artosis pylons ever. Okay, great. Another backup pylon is in that little group of warp-ins. Not actually mining gas off either of those. Huge Zealot wave comes in again and going right for the Nexus. And this time they will actually get this down. No way to stop them. And as that falls, we've just got Eclipse's economy in like shambles. Just no damage being done. As they're commenting, MaydorK is everywhere at this point. He's putting proxy pylons all over the map. He's just got full vision of anything trying to leave this area. He knows where the army is almost at all times. He knows where he can warp in from so many locations. Finally, a pretty good counterattack here, actually against MaydorK's last base, but I'm just wondering if he's waiting too long before actually forcing an engagement. Now instead facing max armies versus max army, but horrible angle for exioN's Eclipse as he gets a bunch of Archons caught in the front there. Big storms going down on the front of this army as the positions have really changed, and MaydorK is now the one caught in the choke, and a big War of the Worlds type fighting here. And a lot of distracted attacking by these Colossus. Weren't actually targeting the Colossus for Eclipse, but they will eventually win out here, as a few Colossus do have to pull back, and Archons coming in to be bulky and take space up front. And both armies do pull off with massive damage done to both, and the supplies shockingly still even. I think a little better target firing by some of the Colossus onto the middle of the Eclipse army could have done some damage, and a huge Zealot walk-in here. I want to call it a run-by, but doesn't even have the charge there yet, which is going to make a bit of difference. Not able to get surface area here, and a DT being warped in is going to basically clean this up. So definitely not a cost-effective counterattack, but may have bought him a little bit of time, but just not doing the economic damage that he wants to. This base, though, not being reestablished yet, and now I guess what would be the fifth out a little more in the open is, and I guess this was part of a clan war between exioN and ROH. Yeah, interesting that things have kind of calmed down for a moment, that we're kind of in the calm little portion. People trying to reestablish their bases, get things going again. He hasn't retaken this location, as I said. Actually did lose the pylon up here, which was spotting for this location, so we could see Eclipse move to there. It's really late in the game to have these rocks still up, but I think it may be that neither player really wants to allow that quick access, so it's in neither their benefit at this moment to actually take them down. MaydorK obviously feels a little more comfortable controlling the space through all these pylons throughout the map and just trying to dominate things that way through drops and warp-ins, and doesn't want that direct path necessarily available. No detection here as he moves in to kill the DT, but then realizes, hey, there's no observer with this army, so I don't really know what I'm doing, going all the way down, and he realizes that is the case. And yeah, it's interesting with as they get onto these four bases, Cheeto is right in pointing out that the Eclipse is up in the economy. He's actually stabilized back into a point where, due to a lot of the delayed mining that he had earlier, and the fact that this is taken out, his bases have a lot more minerals remaining, and he's actually kind of good for the time being, even reestablishing, or not reestablishing, but establishing a 5th base before MaydorK has actually reestablished his 5th, is no longer taking that that position. And just cannons here, it would be hard to attack down this ramp, attack through the middle. We do have the storm advantage for Eclipse, whereas we've got a big Archon advantage for MaydorK. The storms really do fall off the Archon back just due to the amount that they have in shields. You kind of drop a storm on them, they may just go back and completely regenerate that. It's not really a problem. But at the same token, if you really attack down a choke and get a whole lot on them, then they can kind of melt, and then you've got really only the Colossus behind them. There's still not a lot of gateway units, and neither player has actually transitioned into Stargate, which has just frankly, it just kind of like baffles me that they have not in fact done that, given how dominant that seems to be in the PvP matchup, particularly in the late game. A few Void Rays can really do a lot of damage, or Tempests, to force those engagements into the positions you want them to be in by going after other air units and just kind of keeping your opponent away, keeping your opponent on the ramp that you want them to be in the area you want them to be in, and so on. If the Archons can get under an air army, obviously they do a lot, but we've got a lot of Archons for both players at this point. I think it may be the Storms that will ultimately make a big difference in the engagement, though, when it comes down to it. The Colossus usually are quite dominant, and if they get a really good arc and are firing at the right things, can definitely really rip apart an entire army. But if you get things a lot more clumped, then all of a sudden the Storms can become a lot more dominant. They do a lot more front-loaded damage if you really get it across the entire army, and just constant damage throughout, whereas the Colossus are going to take a little time to get their hits going before they match the amount of damage that a single storm can do across something. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think it'll come down to the formation of the armies here. And early in this game, I think MaydorK just didn't press his advantage enough. I know a lot of people have heard that expression, you know, when you're ahead, just get more ahead. But sometimes getting more ahead means that you have to actually attack, to use the advantage you have in military and use the position you have to force them into spending in ways they don't want to force them into doing things that they don't want to be doing at that point. Got an errant warp prism here. Is he going to get picked out? He's actually just going to skate by everything and get back into the main base and go for a little bit of another DT warp in to go. And yeah, with Eclipse at max supply, he's not going to even be able to warp in to deal with this at the moment. We'll instead have to pull back. A huge Zealot warp in to go after this base again. Just overwhelming numbers. You would think at some point he may decide to go for... where is the Twilight Council? To go for charge or blink or something. There's so many Zealots, why you may want to invest in doing that, particularly with the bank that is available for Eclipse at this point. But instead he's forced to pull back his entire army really to deal with this whole thing. And again, a lot of damage being done in terms of unpowering these. Since he is close to max, he'll be able to get back to that point quickly again. And obviously distracting his opponent as well with that DT warp in, as both are kind of traded off against each other. But now with Eclipse's army really out of the way, not in the position he wants to be, but MaydorK being just so good with the harassment, but not actually pushing with the force that he has. The harassment's pulling everything out of place, but then he's not getting his main army in place to take advantage of the fact that he's pulled out of place. And these storms, again, just controlling that space, saying you're not going to fight here, because if you try and fight here, then everything's going to get grouped up. And if you look at the thing, he's either come down this ramp, through this choke, down this ramp through a choke, or what, all the way across here, in which case you could just avoid him and go into another attack on his base. This one does pretty much get taken down. It will get taken down here. I don't think he's going to swing up and try and save that. He doesn't want to actually move out of this location, since finally we do have MaydorK's army in place, and this is just a big waiting game and positional game at this point. Both players trying to really deal with and establish their economy a little better, but we've only ultimately got well, this is so undersaturated for MaydorK at this point, and he's got some idle probes around that he could be pulling down to his third base, definitely. But mined out of gas in 5 locations, not mining everything here and not reestablishing again this on the bottom side of the map. And there's so much going on, and he's doing so much harassment. I can see it being difficult to manage everything at this point in the game. You've just got so many things actually going on. But yeah, as people are pinging out, these bases kind of need to be taken, and he is throwing that down here as we get it trying to reestablish that for Eclipse on the top of the map as well. Really, just patience at this point is apparently what's going to work. Warp Prism going around with 2 Immortals in it, kind of interesting. So he's obviously going to be going after buildings if he can get them. I don't know what he was doing in this area. It was very unlikely that this area was going to be the vulnerable point in the game. He kind of already knew that even, but still got the 2 Immortals just sitting in there. Doesn't really know what to do. I don't think neither player knows how to go in and totally press this advantage, but Eclipse does have the bigger bank, so he may be hoping to get a bit of an advantageous attack and then ultimately win when it comes to reinforcing that attack. So many cannons here that this is going to be stopped this time around, particularly with the Zealot Warp-ins, although it's doing a lot more damage than I thought, just I think due to the initial placement of the Zealots there, but is able to clean that up with, I believe, only the loss of a cannon and obviously the warped in Zealots. I think both players leaving just a tiny bit of room on purpose in their supplies so that he can warp in something. Finally adding on Colossus, and yeah, Blink. Again, I would have gone for Charge before the Blink because he's doing mass Zealot warp-ins all over the map, but sure, why not? There's so many Immortals under this now too that's just going to do a huge amount of damage to Archons or Colossus. I mean, they just do a huge amount of damage. So, and it's hard to take them down because of the way their hardened shields work. Obviously, particularly once they're under this, you can't even see them under there. It'd be hard to actually target fire anything, and they wouldn't be the priority necessarily. They just do so much damage. But it's hard for anyone to be attacking into a choke position at this point. There are still storms available as he catches him in this big choke here. Massive storms going down. These Archons in front just absolutely melt as they try and come through that. DT going to work, but these Colossus are completely separated. Target firing down that group, but a big concave for MaydorK, but it is just Colossus that is really here with only, yeah, it finally does push through, and losing all Archons on both sides, losing all of the Colossus is Eclipse, but it's going to come down to Eclipse's bank here, whether or not he can actually remax in a way that's beneficial, and he's remaxing with DTs, spending both his gas and minerals to try and catch back up here, and it's his ability to rebuild that may end up actually leading to him pulling ahead. Goes right for that Nexus instead of trying to take down the morphing Archons, and as they come in and more DTs coming in behind this, going directly for the now naked Colossus, may just do a lot of damage, kiting back with some of the Archons going directly after these, and I don't believe there's any detection left with this army. We've got Eclipse that went after the Observer early on, whether on purpose or just kind of caught in the splash of that last fight from Archons, is able to actually drive this back, and just his ability to remax as everything comes up is going to, I think, make a difference here, that we just don't have the proper bank for MaydorK, and he's just now getting this base back up and running. But the worker count now in Eclipse's favor this late in the game. It's usually more about just what bases can you possibly have still going. He'll be able to potentially take this base, but this one has been completely mined out. He's just had it for so long, and it's a kind of a waiting game to him now. He must know he's ahead economically in this position, got a big supply lead now, and he just wants to put that bank to work and get units back out onto the map, which he can use to finally make a push in and knock out the remaining economy of MaydorK. Definitely a big turnaround. I mean, he got picked apart in all this. And yeah, Tozu pointing out, I think if he does engage now, he would win. There's not a lot here. Obviously, no Archons remaining for MaydorK, while there are still several out for Eclipse, as well as a pretty much even superior number at this point of Colossus that are actually available. And yeah, as they pointed out, Eclipse killed the Obs a little earlier on, and I don't think that there has been another one. There is 6. Where are they? He maybe overdid it there. That there's 6 out on the map. I don't know why, whether he overreacted and made a bunch either by accident, or whether he decided, I'm going to make so many that I don't get caught in a position that I'm going to get caught off guard by DTs again. But that's a lot of production time and gas that went into getting those out there. And yeah, I do think if Eclipse just kind of pushes across, he could take this, but he may want to do the super safe thing and get another base established, make sure that his continually running economy is actually better than MaydorK's. So I don't know what's going to set this off in terms of initiating the engagement, but if they did go right now, I would think that it's got to be advantage towards Eclipse. In terms of the upgrades, we got fully upgraded MaydorK at 333 with 323 for Eclipse. The shields, I guess, do matter a lot, certainly on the Archons at this point, but with that much damage, I'd call them pretty even. It's more about army composition there at this point. And with so many Zealots out, I think they're just going to die to the splash here. They do engage, get pulled into a group. And I think Eclipse is going to take that, particularly with storms going down on these. There's just nothing left to defend these remaining Colossus. And as Immortals come and target them down, no remaining army for MaydorK and a huge Colossus count for Eclipse. He's going to pound through this base, and MaydorK does realize he has to tap out there. And wow, huge game, 45-minute long PvP using pretty much, I think the only base that was never mined from was this one on the bottom of the map. Crazy comeback. About 20 minutes into that game, it seemed really hard that Eclipse would ever come back from that, but I think MaydorK was maybe, despite being not passive at all with his warp-ins and run-bys and DTs and things like that that did a lot of damage, never delivered the actual finishing blow with an army, and eventually allowed Eclipse to actually scrape back into this by just holding things down with the central army with storms that prevented him from ever getting in an engagement, and just not taking advantage when the army was pulled out of position. MaydorK wasn't there to deliver that punch to the economy in a major way and take advantage of the fact that his harassment was actually doing so well. And in the end there, Eclipse just able to keep his economy running. I think at a few points, MaydorK just ending up with less probes than he had available actually mining. So despite having more bases at some points in the game, just wasn't getting anything out of it. And this is long enough already, but that was an awesome game, and hope to see more of those in the future. Thanks for watching, guys.